we are dealing with the matter of life and death. Because we are dealing with the matter of life and death, we must take examples that have existed in our lives. Being an artist before I came to Parliament, there was a man called Fide Bongole Rutaya. Before Fide Bongole Rutaya came out and boldly gave HIV/AIDS a face, all of us who were then existing thought HIV/AIDS was witchcraft. And because of that ignorance, Right Honorable Speaker, many lives were lost. If we still had that mindset, we would still be dying. So, before a problem is solved, a problem has to be known about.
Information.
As I conclude, Right Honorable Speaker,
information.
When I was a student, like some of the honorable members on the opposition, we had a saying, also not taken. We had a saying that if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Today, Right Honorable Speaker, resisting knowledge is actually taking away a right.
Honorable.
So
Honorable information. Are you aware that Philip Bongole Lutaya that you took off voluntarily told out his results, not compulsorily? And on top of that, are you also aware that currently the judiciary is offering chance to those positive people to declare their results and being supported by giving welfare, and there is a lot of forgery coming out in the judiciary? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is very important information. And like I said in my submission, that this is a meeting point of ideas, not a contestation of ideas. I conclude by saying that we must make it compulsory for us to know, and then along the way, find the details. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Member. So now get the last member on this side.
Mr. Speaker, my name is Jack Wamango Amai. Now, let me ask members on the opposition side, how many of you have ever walked in darkness? Or those of you who come from the countryside? I know there's power in different towns, in Kampala, but those who come from villages, how many of you have ever walked in darkness? Quite a number, isn't it? Thank you very much. Now, when you walk in darkness and you're walking, you don't know where you're going, and there's a ditch, you'll definitely fall in the ditch, isn't it? And this is the issue with HIV/AIDS. It's important, and very important, that you know what status you are before you can move on. My colleague has just told you about Fide Rutaya, who came, I'll not take the information because the time is not so much, who came out openly and declared his status. And declaring his status, he helped so many citizens of the world. I want to give you one example of a gentleman called, I'll not take the information.
Won't take the information.
Lubalomira Ruranga. A gentleman who came out openly and declared his status. And he started on medication. And today, as I speak, 30 years down the drain, Mr. Lubalomira is still living. So it's quite important. It's for your own good that you get tested and you know your status before you can move on. Now imagine you are young people and you don't know your status, and you are at school when you are HIV positive, definitely you will have shattered your lives. Now it's important that you do the testing and you start on medication, and then you can live for 30 or 40 years. Now why is it important to have compulsory testing? We are members of the world society, world community.
Honorable Member, I'll give you 30 seconds to...
I'm going to finish. We are members of the international community. And the whole world is fighting against the scourge of AIDS. And Uganda is a member of the world community. And therefore it's important that Uganda follows what the whole world is doing to fight against HIV, to make sure we are tested. Now you recall that we have the World Health Organization. and you all do sciences in schools, and you know the 5 killer diseases. The whole world came against those diseases and said everybody must be vaccinated when one is a child. And because of that, we got rid of polio, of tetanus, and so on, because the whole world took on the vaccination of these killer diseases. And therefore, it's quite important that testing is important to get rid, because we are going to reduce the number, and the government spends a lot of money on treating people who don't know their status. But if we get everybody tested, therefore we are going to get the scourge down. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. I'm going to allow 2 speakers from the opposition side and change the rules a bit. They are going to speak one after the other.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have often wondered why those who desperately need help are the really ones who don't know where to seek help from, like the government. Now, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's motion was for the government to prove to us whether indeed there's a need for us to make testing compulsory. Hitting back to the example of the Philip Lotaya Bongole musician that they gave, that he testified to the public, not forcefully, but voluntarily. And the fact that the confession was being made, that after that he took very many strategies to make sure Ugandans are actually avoiding HIV. And his confession was not made because the government had set a plan for all musicians to make it compulsory. So that is one. Number 2, they talked about malaria control. They believe if malaria was controlled, they can also control HIV. I would take later. Malaria was controlled because the treatment and the test of malaria was not made compulsory, making a confession to the fact that because testing of malaria it was optional and dependent on the right of the choice of a person, it really worked. Making a confession that we do not need to make HIV testing compulsory. This debate was actually narrowed down to 4 to 5 things. Number 1, we already had very many pending bills in the parliament, and they actually failed. When they talked about banning the Kavera policy, I will take later. When they talked about banning the Kavera policy, it worked for 2 days or more. But what happened next? It was ineffective. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the question of tonight's debate is one. What are the risks associated with when government decides to make HIV testing compulsory? Number 1, there will be psychological, give me time. We have risks associated when HIV testing will be made compulsory. Number 1, how sure are we that these health professionals to whom these people will go to will not disclose their status? Now something like this will come here. How sure are we that their status will not be disclosed to the public in a situation where only HIV positive people are stigmatized in the public? Now number 2, they insist they want an AIDS-free generation in Uganda. Now the question is, in Rakai where HIV patient was first discovered, ARVs are lacking, so what is their plan? Invalid. Now we agree with the status quo that apparently it is compulsory for those mothers. Now the question is here for the government to answer. Fine, the mothers are tested to be negative. But what happens if tomorrow she goes and plays unprotected sex with an infected person, and you, because you've set a record that she's negative, yet in reality the following day she gets HIV/AIDS? So we need you to answer us, how many times are you going to test? Are you going to test every moment? Are you going to supervise every moment? Are you going to test on a daily basis? For them to answer. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, I want to question the economic status of the country.
30 seconds for you.
A country that is highly indebted. What assurance do we have that the resources that are apparently there in the country will actually be sufficient when you want to make HIV testing compulsory? And we want to also the government to prove to us, is there really need for us to make HIV testing compulsory? Once answered, they will take tonight's debate. However, up to now, they have failed, they have gone negative to next night's debate, because we believe,
thank you.
We believe that testing by out of will has really worked and will be effective. On a conclusive note, if they really wanted to shine like sun, they'll have to first burn like it. Resolved.
Okay, we'll get the last submission from the opposition side.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. The name is Mumbere Amos, representing Terrace School. Now, in today's debate, government has shown us a lot about what they do. They came here and told us that in the very first place, their job is to work out policies that are going to work for the country. Now, when they come here, we ask them one very big question about resources. During their second presentation, they told us that we indeed do not have enough resources as of now to deal with the people we have suffering from HIV. So what about the 40 million people that they are trying to test? That is the very first thing that they did not answer. Secondly, When they talked about deterrence is a very big reason as to why we should have mandatory testing of the citizens of Uganda. We pointed it out to them that, well, in the very first place, people do not indulge in all these harmful sexual behaviors because they are not going to be tested. That is one thing they do not get. And thirdly, if at all they are talking about implementing a policy for resources they do not have, we are wondering as opposition, where are they trying to lead this country? If they talk about their benefit as having an AIDS-free Uganda, we ask them, where exactly is the guarantee that testing people is going to prevent them from contracting the virus afterwards? And thirdly, if it must be mandatory, then why is it that the voluntary operation that we have had right now has worked very, very well, and what problem do they have with it? Making it mandatory is going to be a very big problem in that, one, we do not have the resources as they agree. Secondly, the people themselves responding to it is going to be a very hard thing. As we pointed it out, 55% of the people currently with HIV are not even responding to the treatment that is there. Now, what if you make this kind of testing compulsory? What happens if people do not actually work to it? We pointed out as opposition that the law or the standing of government should not be according to what it should actually be according to what the people's welfare is, not the people's welfare being actually to what the government is saying. So for that matter, as opposition, we stand to say that if at all voluntary testing has yielded the result that we see, the progress that we see, then this is the way to go. If we do not have the resources to implement such a policy, if we do not have the will of the people to support this, if we must also go ahead to embark on their right to choose, then we are going the wrong way. So for that matter, if government is here to propose a workable policy and admit that they do not have the resources, they do not tell us how they are going to implement this, they are not telling us whether it's going to be after a period of time. We have a very dynamic population whereby people come and go out of the country each and every other day. Then if their policy up to now is unclear, it's time we stop dreaming, it's time we stopped hoping, it's time we stopped doing all these things that the government are trying to tell us. And as I conclude, it's time to actually come up with policies that work, policies for which we have resources, policies to which people are going to respond, not just say things that are not really defined and expect to help our country. So for this and so much more, I, with my team, the opposition, have never been prouder to say that we should stay with the voluntary testing that we have, as it is working very well in the fight against HIV. I rest my case.
Give us a summary, compound it and convince us.
Thank you so much, the Right Honorable Speaker, sir. Speaker, sir, and honorable members, I want to first react to some issues that were raised by our colleagues on the other side. One is that the government is not paying doctors. That's not true. Government has been paying the doctors. Well, only doctors were agitating for enhancement of salaries. But the government has been paying doctors, and it will continue doing so.
As much as we get now.
And on the issue of mandatory testing, I've been visiting India. When you go to India, even if you go test for malaria, they must test for HIV and hepatitis. That's a fact. And it has been doing very, very well. So to me, I feel that as a country, we must move and ensure there is compulsory testing. One, simply because there has been lack of responsibility on the side of men. Women go and test, especially on antenatal care. When it comes to antenatal care, men are left. It's made like closing the door behind, you leave the door in front open. A woman can go mess up when a man is already tested, you'll never know. So it's compulsory for the government to ensure these couples, these people go for compulsory testing so that you know. Two, it acts as checks and balance. When you know that after 3 months, because opposition said we're asking, when do you keep test? Do you test every day, or it's compulsory that someone should test after every 3 months? So every 3 months, someone should go and test. So this will act as checks and balance. Every other time, after 3 months, we shall go and test. And what government might do, because when you go, maybe you are sick, maybe you have malaria, maybe you are sick of any other illness, they will make it mandatory to test for HIV. It's like what's happening now with the hepatitis. Hepatitis is killing very many people.
30 seconds for you, honorable member.
As I'm concluding, this will, I think, mandatory testing for the young people, especially antenatal stage. It has helped young people. Now you might be positive, your mother might be positive, but you get a healthy baby. So this has saved, and even it will give government a way of planning. It knows how many people are infected, how many drugs should we stock in terms of human resource. So if government knows how many have this disease, it will help government to plan well. As I'm concluding, this even will save our human resource. We have very important people, government has invested a lot, and these people, without knowing their health status, they end up dying. So if you know earlier, when your CD4s are still high, you can control, take drugs, live health for 30 or 40 years. So to me, the Right Honorable Speaker, I'm here throwing my whole weight in supporting this motion that government should put in place compulsory testing for God and my country. Thank you so much.
My name is Gasta Kaire, and I am Executive Chairman of National Debate Council that puts together this. So this year, like we have done in all previous years, we started doing this here in 2010. We do organize the National Schools Debate Championship. That is a typical national event that brings together national schools from the different parts of the country to debate on a given theme. And this particular year, the debates are on HIV/AIDS. And we started way back in June with regional debates in 13 regions around the country. And this culminated into the finals of the National Schools Debate Championship that have been running since 2nd of December at King's College, Puto. And tonight we have the culmination, which is the grand finale of the two teams that have made it to this level, all debating on HIV/AIDS among young people. And that's why you saw the brilliant statistics and brilliant information from them. They've done immense research. So this afternoon at 3 o'clock, who does in favor say aye. And this time round, the ayes have it. Okay, thank you very much. I'll hand over to Peter, who will give us some administrative announcements, how we're going to have lunch, where, and what time we should be back here. Thank you very much.